Hello, hello.
Hi there. How you doing?
And I'm doing well, thanks. Welcome to the 43rd, I can't believe the 43rd episode of Overdose and Chill.
Wow, very distinguished number. I'm happy.
we saved it just for you. So good afternoon to those folks in the US, good evening to the folks in Europe, and good morning to the folks in APAC who might be joining. By all means, as we go along, feel free to ask questions, drop it in the chat, either in YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and we will get to those as we go. So we are welcome today. We're joined today by Hilary Murdock of Threekit. So hello, thanks for joining.
Hello.
And I've just decided we're going to kick off this Overdose and Chill with a brand new segment, which I'm calling Living La Vida Local. So okay. I'm curious, during this COVID pandemic, of late, what are you streaming these days?
Wow, I feel like the streaming factor has been a journey for everyone on this pandemic, during this pandemic, right? Like, you know, they're the phenomenons like the Tiger Kings that everyone's watching, you know.
That was early, that's like early COVID.
That was early. I feel like there's less of that going on. I think we were all a lot more excited to be home back in May of last year than we are now. So when I talk to friends about what they're watching, it's like we're all kind of watching different things. I'll be honest, I've the one that I've stuck with the most, and I've never watched this prior to quarantine, is Survivor.
Okay, interesting.
Because it's something that both my husband and I can kind of get into. There's a nice rhythm to it, and then, you know, you kind of always know what to expect, but there's still enough like twists and turns. And then as you watch more seasons, you get more acquainted with these like return visitors to the islands. So there's almost a character aspect to it as well. So yeah, like we've probably watched, I don't know how many seasons there are. I think there are like 30. We've probably watched like,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, 17 of them or something like that.
I forget what comedian had a bit about, he's like, so we now have made entertainment out of stranding people in a remote area and challenging them to survive in a place where people actually already survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then how about food delivery? What's your go-to food delivery of late?
Of late, there's a local Mexican restaurant here. I live in Oak Park, outside of Chicago in Illinois. A local Mexican restaurant here that we really started to visit quite a bit before the pandemic, and it's in this storefront that has like always had a lot of restaurants like come through it. So we really worried when quarantine hit that they weren't going to survive. So we've been it's called Hecho in Oak Park. We've been supporting them quite a bit throughout. We try to mix it up a little bit too. What about you? What are you eating during the pandemic?
What am I eating? I'm in Yonkers, New York. So there's a lot of food options sort of from the Bronx and Westchester.
Sure.
Really gotten into Thai food. Wasn't a thing that I was really into before. It's a really good Thai place locally called Moon Thai Kitchen, I think. So it's really good. And on the streaming front, we just discovered this new series on Netflix, This Is a Robbery.
Yeah. I watched that last week.
Really good. We're on episode 2 or 3 tonight, so we'll see where that goes. But really interesting stuff there. But
yes, there's another documentary on Netflix about fake paintings.
Oh, I did hear about that one also, but I haven't gotten that one yet.
I feel like it's just a one.
Counterfeiting and like and how they got busted. But anyway, cool. And lastly, are you a pet person?
We talk about getting a dog all the time.
That's close.
It hasn't happened.
All right. Well, so it's always tomorrow. All right. Very cool. So I'd love to sort of get into the e-commerce side of things. Would love to learn a little bit about you before we do. So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've spent most of my career, the majority of my career, in the creative and strategy side of advertising. So that meant working at agencies, brand agencies like FCB Chicago, VML Y&R, doing digital strategy, a smaller agency called iCrossing prior to coming to Threekit. And the thing I really loved about that was that, from a strategy perspective, or sometimes they're called planners at agencies, it's really all about getting into the shoes of the customer and trying to figure out, what's the thing, what's the insight that's going to make advertising for X client really salient and resonant with this group. And it involved a lot of research and communications planning, and then ultimately, coming up with, partnering with a creative team to come up with a really good idea. But what I didn't like was that it felt so far away from results. Like, coming up with a big advertising campaign is really, really fun, but you're really not at like the tip of the spear in terms of attribution and accountability. Like, did we, depending on what the KPI is, trying to track it all the way back to like my efforts and my contribution was really tough. And at the same time, Chicago's interesting. It's kind of got this burgeoning tech community, very kind of grassroots. It's definitely not thought of, I think, as like one of the primary hubs in the US, certainly not a Silicon Valley exactly. But if you look a little deeper, there are a lot of really incredible businesses that have started here and really taken off. And I was just interested in that aspect of the workforce in Chicago. So when I saw a job that seemed to kind of align with my strill set in terms of customer insights and positioning strategy and all that, and also got me into this tech world, that's how I wound up at Threekit about a year and a half ago. So I made a jump. I was, on the agency side of things for years, which I love, but now I'm doing something different and taking a lot of what I learned from that side and trying to apply it at Threekit.
Very cool. I appreciate you sharing that background. And Threekit, for those who are watching, listening, is?
Threekit is 3D and augmented reality product visuals for commerce. We say commerce more broadly, not just e-commerce, because there's a portion of our offering that has a lot of applicability on the B2B side of things. But the shortest way to tell it is, if you have a configurable, customizable product that you want to put on your site, have people be able to configure themselves and buy in real time and be able to see exactly what it is that they're buying, that is really kind of our niche. So we work in a lot of industries that enable that. Think about furniture, jewelry, apparel, auto, kind of you name it when it comes to products. That's where we are.
So what started out as sort of back in the day of, hey, this website will allow you to upload your logo and basically superimpose it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Then sort of evolved into, hey, not only can you upload your logo, but you can actually type in letters and it will render on the object. Now we can actually make it so there's draping and you can sort of see shadows.
Yeah.
Then it's become, hey, we can actually configure and build the whole product in the digital experience with different fabric. Let's go with furniture. Different fabrics, different configurations, with the ottoman, without the ottoman, with the armrest, without the armrest, with patterns. And then now we're at the point where we're able to configure those things, personalize them, and even render them in the space in which you intend to use them, all within the digital experience.
Exactly.
Which is pretty mind-blowing. And I think during COVID, again, where, I think pre-COVID, this was already a thing, right? It was a very cool technology that you could leverage to do these really sort of, at the time, it was sort of, not to make light of it, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
Then it became, holy crap, I've been locked at home for 6 months and I hate my couch. And I'm not realizing that now that it's 24 hours a day in my place of dwelling, that I'm not happy with my bed, my couch, whatever it is. But shoot, I can't go to the store and really shop for it. And looking at Amazon reviews is not sufficient. And damn, is it going to even fit in my apartment? And now you can build your couch, show it in your apartment, read reviews to understand how comfortable it is, order it, and you never have to go to a store.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is the reality we're living in, or at least we're moving towards. To your point, certainly we've seen a lot more demand, or at least interest, since quarantine for the reasons that you state, right? Like from the e-commerce side, the store side, wow, I've got to upgrade this experience because this is the only way I have to sell things for the foreseeable future, you know? And then from the consumer side, you know, to your point, people have a lot of time to look around, decide that way they want to change about things. And I think that was specifically true of home goods and furniture. That's where we saw a lot of traction in the past year or so. So the idea is, you know, with these highly configurable products that are highly configurable within these industries, you know, how do we ensure that customers are getting exactly what they want? And I think up to this point, you know, I think e-commerce stores were being really innovative and trying to provide as much information as they could, but there's really nothing like seeing that configured thing with the fabric that you want, with the finishes, the exact dimensions, you know. And so it's a boon for both the customers, because who likes to order something that arrives, especially if it's something kind of sizable and it doesn't fit or it doesn't work for any one of a number of reasons. And certainly you don't want to be the business that's on the receiving end of returns like that. So ultimately, as close as we can get to providing the brick and mortar experience, or even going beyond that, because when you go to shop brick and mortar, you're not going to see your exact configured thing. You can look through a pattern book or a materials book and kind of start to get an idea. But you know, the idea is that this is the type of tool that can be used not just online, but in stores as well, to again make sure customers are getting exactly what they want.
Yeah, and it's really, and I go to this well frequently for folks who've listened before, but you know, I was with the Home Depot for 7-8 years, and you know, sales 101, put the product in the consumer's hand, and short of that, let them at least configure it and see it in their home as best you can. So it's really enabled merchants to sell it in such a more effective way than they have historically, with just sort of static, you know, PLPs, PDPs, and what your catalog has to offer sort of out of the gate. And when you look at, you know, we've always in digital been striving to bridge that gap. I think I take it back. Maybe early on we were striving to bridge that gap between brick and mortar and digital, right? How do you take that brick and mortar shopper and bring them online? Then all of a sudden there were these digitally native shoppers who just sort of grew up shopping online. You didn't need to bridge that gap anymore, at least not as much as it used to. But then all of a sudden COVID hits, and all those shoppers who were still shopping brick and mortar or partly shopping brick and mortar, all of a sudden were thrust to the website where they may not be accustomed to shopping. So you start looking at sort of how the tech stacks have evolved over the past 12 months, whether it's enhanced customer service platforms or chatbots or video platforms or live feed platforms like a Hero. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in this space over the past 12 months that merchants have been doing sort of holistically to help bridge that gap between brick and mortar and bringing those customers comfortably as best they can to the digital space?
Yeah, I mean, any one of a number of things come to mind, you know, that go just beyond our technology and wanting to bring things to life. I think one of the things that we hear a lot from customers is they want to be able to, in some cases, start the experience online and maybe finish that in store. This can be true very much for furniture. We work with a lot of clothing brands, so men's suiting. You know, suits with obviously made to order, you've got different measurements, all these different materials and fabrics. And, you know, even digital natives may get to the point where it's like, I'm designing something, but this is not an inexpensive item. It's really personal to me, even though I'm getting a really good look at what this is here on the site. I kind of want to go in the store and make sure like it's perfect. You know, if it's the couch, I configure the perfect couch. I do still want to go in and sit on it and make sure that it's super comfortable, right? So one of the things that, you know, we enable is the ability to start that configuration, and, you know, it's saved in the system. And when the customer arrives, it's like you're with the sales associate and you pick up right from where they left off. Let's see everything you looked at. Let's bring you over to the couch. Let's have you sit on it. Let's look at the other accessories that go with it. As much as we can give customers a hand in the process of creating, the more likely they are to convert, not just on site, but even if they do wind up going in store. So I mean, that's just kind of the human nature of it. There's plenty of data to support the fact that like the more time you spend with something, the more kind of ownership you feel over it, the more you're kind of like, spent 20 minutes shopping for this thing. Like, I don't want to leave empty-handed, and I personalized it, and I think it'll look really, you know what I mean? So giving people really engaging ways to interact that hopefully will transfer if they do decide to go online to the in-store experience. And then on top of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and on top of that, there's a lot of talk now of, virtual try-on and AR and that type of thing. And that's an experience that, you can provide online, but you can also provide that type of thing, in store as well without having, we've got the pair of shoes on you. We don't have to run and get your size and every single kind you want. With AR technology, there might be the ability there to just like switch them on and off right when you're standing there. So, there's all kinds of, I think we often think of like the e-commerce first brick and mortar thing as a binary, like, eventually brick and mortar is going to go the way of the dodo because everyone's going to shop like this. And that may be true, but I'm more of the mind that a lot of the technology and things we enable online will start to mimic more of the in-store experience and maybe create a closer connection.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think, when you consider the challenges of shopping in general, I can't help but feel, I know this is true for me, and I shouldn't shop from my own pockets, as they say, but it's not that I have any objection to going to a store to buy something. It's the concern that I get there and they don't have it, right? So you look at the website and you go, as transparent as inventories are, and as much as you can locate your, you put in your zip code and it says your local Home Depot. Home Depot has it. You need to call ahead and make sure that in fact it is in something. So, do you want to go through the hassle of getting to the location only to be disappointed because it's not there? But with this new experience where, especially with made to measure clothes, for example, that it's going to take some time, and you're willing to wait that time if you get the thing that's personalized for you, right? Ordering a couch and waiting 6 to 8 weeks is normal, right? If it's a custom couch. So it's not. I think it's about setting expectations and having the right experience, and really setting that person up to be able to go and shop in store or pick up in store, and be fulfilled, as it were.
Right. I'm really curious, what are you hearing from your clients about that same thing, about this, how much do we invest in e-commerce versus how much do we still, reserve for kind of the tried and true, in-store experience? Do they wrestle with that? And what kind of questions are they asking you guys?
Yeah, they absolutely wrestle with it. I think, COVID threw a monkey wrench in a lot of it because, the brick and mortars have to close. But as they sort of think through what it looks like when they reopen them, they have to have that real conversation about, is this a store? Is it a showroom, right? Are people going to browse, and then they buy online? And are you effectively incentivizing your in-store personnel to transact online with their customers, right? One of the challenges you have historically when you bring in a website into a traditionally brick and mortar business is the folks on site in the brick and mortar see the website as cannibalizing their store revenues, right? So if it's a competition between digital and brick and mortar, it's a lose-lose for everybody.
Right.
But once you open up that sort of endless aisle in the store and have those tablets and say, hey, we may not have it here, but we might have it in the next town over, or we can order online for you and have it shipped to you, next day or 2 days. All of a sudden, if you incentivize the in-store associates to get, if they're commission-based, have commission count for online sales as well, as long as they work with that person to transact. But yeah, I think, you're going to see a lot more and more, and you're seeing it already, of stores being used as fulfillment centers, right? So
it's so crazy how things like ebb and flow. I think my first job out of college, which is going to date me, but I worked in marketing for a showroom in the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, which today I think is mostly office space, but at the time was just this massive building full of furniture showrooms. And the only people who could shop there were certified interior designers.
Yep.
With or without their clients, right? But you couldn't be a Joe Schmo off the street and walk in and just buy something. Plus, it was all showrooms. Everything was customized, made to order. And then the accessibility brought about by the Crate and Barrels and the Pottery Barns of the world made it so, you could have what looked like high-end, somewhat customized products, probably is not as many made to measure down to the actual dimensions, but you could pick your fabric, you could pick your finishes, you could walk right off the street and get it. You didn't need a gatekeeper like a designer. So that really hurt the showroom business, right? Well, now we're back to this thing where we're like, the everyday person wants it all. Like they want the totally made to measure, made to order goods. They know they can do it actually online. And now, some of those competitors like the Crate and Barrels and the Pottery Barns have to kind of figure out this landscape now, where they used to be eating the showroom's lunch, and now we're kind of swinging back a little bit to something else, and obviously technology enables a lot of that. So, it's interesting to see how the whole thing has evolved.
It's interesting to your point where, travel agents. Right.
Oh, yeah.
When I grew up, you needed someone to book your plane tickets and your hotel because you didn't know the best way to find rates. You didn't know the right hotels. Now you've got TripAdvisor and Kayak, and that's where I live when I'm traveling anywhere. And to your point, as digital and as Crate and Barrel has sort of maybe at some point cut out sort of the middleman or middle person, as it were. I can imagine that this tech and augmented reality and configurators like Threekit actually might open the door again to that world where I'm online and, the whole paralysis by analysis, right? I've got a couch, because I keep going back to that example because I love that example. I've got, 5 times 4 times 3 times 6 times 7 configurations I can have there. Sometimes it's thousands of configurations. And I might then say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to talk to a consultant. Maybe there's someone there who could help me figure out what the right thing is, or maybe there's a designer. Maybe they're doing some affiliate stuff where they partner with an interior design firm that helps you through your furniture site with an interior decorator who can then give you the whole package. So I think it's weird how there's sort of the ebbs and flows and cycles of what we think we want and then what we actually want and what we need.
Right. And that is part of it too. In some cases, you don't want to leave the shopper up to their own devices completely. I think of really complicated B2B categories where you're selling, commercial equipment with a lot of different bells and whistles, configurations, accessories. I'm sure they don't call them that in that industry, but a billion different ways that this massive machine, will say, can be configured. Traditionally that would be sold like a lot of things are in the B2B space through like PDF spec sheets and order forms. And you just kind of hope the thing comes out with all the stuff that you want, and make sure you dot all your I's and cross your T's and hope for the best. And what we enable in that space is that guided selling, exactly what you were talking about. It's like it's particularly now that there are no such thing as sales meetings, at least not in person. You can be on Zoom with the customer and say, well, let me show you what that looks like. Let's configure it here together. Let's make sure this is exactly what you want. So it's helpful both to enable and empower consumers, the average consumer, but it's also helpful for the B2B salesperson and the B2B customer to make sure that they're probably making a really big investment in something. And this is a kind of a fail-safe way to do that sales cycle.
It looks like we have some questions coming in, but I just asked for a clarification on what that is. So when it comes over, I'll pop that up on the screen. Yeah, sorry, I lost track as I was answering that, or addressing that question. Where are you seeing merchants most effectively leverage technology like Threekit? What types of merchants and in conjunction with what other third-party tech? What types of third-party tech?
We spend quite a bit of time talking to our potential customers, but also a lot of time talking to, partners who we can, kind of help one another out in terms of what the offering is. I think about one of our use cases is, to answer your first question, where we're seeing a lot of traction is with brands and businesses who understand that ultimately this is where it's all going. You know what I mean? To your point, prior to the pandemic and even now, if you didn't start pursuing 3D visuals and augmented reality and you sell a configurable product, people would be like, okay. but it's our firm belief and the belief of our customers that like, I might as well get in on the ground floor of this thing because it is going to, scale for me. Ultimately, everyone will be in the space trying to do this. I want to be the first. I really believe this is the future of commerce when it comes to product.
It's there's no doubt in my mind, if you have things like jewelry, things that are engravable, things that are monogrammable, if the end user is unable to see their monogram and their font and their color on that tote, they're not going to buy it.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Ostensibly. So I think rather than this being hey, this is a nice enhanced feature that to add to your tech stack, it's sort of like you're missing this. It's not that it's that it's an integral part of your business that it just has been lacking.
Well, and the ability to do that again at scale, we have several jewelry customers and get jewelry prospects in all the time. And that is, a category where customization is at the heart of a lot of growth of companies. They're saying more and more people don't want anything off the shelf. I think it kind of started with the, customized engagement ring craze, which is what several of our configurators online are. But now it's like everything down to a necklace for mom or a brooch or whatever. Like people want to put their own spin on it, and they know it's possible to do so. For the jeweler, it's, well, how do I get that experience going online? And you spoke a little bit before about, for a while now we've been able to personalize, which is like kind of type on top of something so you could at least see like not exactly what it's going to look like, but like generally
get a feel for what it could potentially look similar to.
Exactly. What's amazing about this technology is like it takes into account like the etching, like the space that's taken away when you etch something into the surface of a metal. And, you can really like zoom into that and actually see with great detail exactly what it's going to look like. I just am constantly amazed at how our 3D artists and product people and developers are able to correctly represent light and change in light and draping and how it impacts products depending on where you are in the room. Being able to marry the level of, again, configuration and customization, but also, visual quality. And I mean, I think that is kind of what the market has been waiting for in terms of like, do I really want to take the jump into this 3D thing? It's like, well, the quality probably won't be that great. Well, that's no longer the case.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. And I think one of the use cases we haven't touched on yet. So we have the, the personalization, the engraved rings and the t-shirts. And you have the configurations, the couches and the desks and all the things that you can sort of build. But another massive use case that, wish we had known about this tech or it had been around years ago. We were working with a luxury linens brand. And they had, 15, 20, 30 colorways sometimes of their linens. And they would go on these exotic photo shoots where they'd take a king size bed out into sort of the jungle with like waves crashing. And it was just really thoughtful, beautifully sort of choreographed scenes. And they'd have to make the bed 15 times.
Sure. Yeah.
And they were spending something like $1 million, like 1.5 a year, a crazy amount on just photo shoots for the sheets for their PDPs. And when you think about this kind of technology like Threekit, you're able to do one photo shoot and you're able to, basically digitally replace all the other colorways of your product. So if you have dresses, shoes, bedding, reduces your overhead dramatically on the photo shoot side.
Well, and we see this a lot with luxury brands, frankly. They're silhouettes of luxury purses that have not changed in literally decades, but they'll add a new leather, they'll add a new fabric every season. And the bottom line is, if we have a 3D model of that original prototype, that original design, it's just a matter of rendering the fabric and, that lasts forever. You don't have to, you don't even have to manufacture it, which is another interesting element. It's like, wow, we've got this, this style of jacket that really performs well for us. We only want to produce it in 5 patterns next season, though. let's do some demand testing, let's see which patterns, and you can advertise either through display ads or through focus groups, whatever it is, you can bring that thing to life without actually manufacturing it.
Let's do a pre-sale. Let's only make it if we hit 1,000 units, and then it cuts down on warehousing space and logistics costs. You just ship it right from, right to the end user once, the orders are in and you actually go and build the product. So it's,
Exactly. That's, we're just starting to, I think, scratch the surface of how that's used from, like I said, demand testing standpoint, research standpoint, advertising standpoint. We partner with Google Ads or Google Swirl, depending on how you refer to it, to do 3D ad units where people can actually interact with the product, within the display ad, right? Before they decide to go off site. So yeah, it just has a lot of different possibilities for seeing and experiencing a product before that product has been manufactured.
Well, as I think about that, but if the 3D rendering and sort of how it's visualized in that ad, just by its very nature is engaging and can draw you into the site, just to be like, oh wow, I can go configure my backpack on that site. Cool.
Right.
So you may not actually intend to buy something, but you're intrigued. So then you go, and all of a sudden you're engaging with the site, with the brand, and shoot, you might buy a backpack.
Right.
We do have a question here from Troy. As mixed and virtual reality devices have become easier to access, and as a result, buying decisions are easier to make, how largely do you see this impacting physical store foot traffic, and how quickly?
We kind of touched on that a little before. I'd be crazy to say I know the answer for sure. But I do kind of, an idea that you kind of brought up, Andrew, was, stores more as showrooms, or stores as, and this was kind of starting to take up pre-pandemic, but like the proliferation of the pop-up store or the pop-up experiences, where brands no longer need to invest necessarily in a permanent footprint. But hey, if they're doing some really amazing, promotion or a new launch, they can, rent out a space for a given period of time, and obviously, create a lot of hubbub around that and have really cool experiences within the store that could involve 3D and AR, certainly. So it could wind up in some cases driving more, I would say, special foot traffic for special occasions, perhaps, while, maybe decreasing kind of that everyday foot traffic that.
Are we going full circle back to Tupperware parties and trunk clubs? Right? Where
I don't know, right?
Out here, but buy it for me and you'll get it in 2 weeks kind of thing.
Well, that's, there are plenty of marketing models that have proliferated on social networks, the varying degrees of success and also maybe scandal. So I won't get too much into that, but yeah, I think it has the capacity to just change the way that we think about shopping and store experience. And I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly what it was going to look like. But I guarantee you there are some people out there right now trying to figure out how to use technology more effectively within store environments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What else? What are you seeing out there that excites you right now? Outside of Threekit, what's new that you're just like, that's just a cool space, and excited to see sort of what comes? I'm
tempted to bring up NFTs because we kind of have perspective on that, but I'm sure other people will. And I'd be lying if I said I could, talk the intricacies of that market with any kind of authority. We're seeing, what's exciting me is that technology is empowering smaller businesses, in a way that I think just wasn't possible. From an e-commerce standpoint, all of the tools that anyone who wants to start an online shop has at their disposal to actually make that a reality. Now, it's not as easy as it looks or sounds, right? But some of the most interesting conversations we have are with the small businesses who say, I'm going to start small, making one configurable object. And if this really works and my product is really good, then this is a great use case pilot for me. And I can grow from this. And I think that's just one example of way that technology is helping. But I recently did a talk with the whole International Business School with their fashion society, and the way that these, I'm not going to say kids, younger people, a lot of them felt like younger people, are thinking about sustainability within fashion and how important getting a handle on fast fashion is, just bringing some more just dignity back to the entire industry. I thought was really cool. And it's not just about, it's about creating something really rich and unique and fun, but also doing good. And I think that's a lot of, those are at least a lot of the conversations that I get excited about, is how technology can actually be a boon for the greater good and not just, a way for companies to make money.
Well, now I can't talk about my thing because yours sounds so noble.
Well, tell me about I just got, it's better than talking about NFTs. Go ahead.
No, I just, we had some chats over on Clubhouse, which you did join a couple weeks ago. So thanks for joining that. It was a lot of fun. On fulfillment and sort of value add through your fulfillment partner or your own fulfillment, right? So we're talking with Ryan Powell over at Port Logistics, and he was telling us how he has one client. I believe they're a fragrance brand, and they're contracted that every time that they pack a package, they are to pump 2 sprays, not one, but 2 sprays into the box before they ship it. So whether it's doing a handwritten note to the end user or doing something that, if we're not able to have that in-store experience that maybe we used to have with the brand, how are you bringing that brand sort of into the person's home outside of the brown box they get shipped, right? No one wants to think, and obviously we're on the inside, so we know how 3PLs work, and it's just coming from a random place to your home. You want to think that box came off the CEO's desk and that they inspected it before they shipped it to you, right? That's what you want to feel like when you get it. So, some of the really exciting stuff going on in the 3PL sort of value add space and how they're sort of elevating the brand on the back end of things to sort of build loyalty and return users. And I was thinking, for you guys, I'm imagining I buy a couch, right? It's an L-shaped couch, whatever, 2-seat by 1, whatever. But in that box or in the packaging when I get it, there's a card of cross-sell upsells with QR codes. They're like, you just bought the couch, but you can there's also an ottoman, there's also an armchair, and these are ones that would go with your couch. There's no way we read all the emails we get. We sort of are now reading more, snail mail we get. But when you get a package with an item you bought, you look at what that card says, I think. Right. So I'm curious your thoughts on stuff like that.
Yeah, you're bringing up one of my favorite topics, clienteling. It kind of goes back to, what I was saying about the really enhanced personalization features. And, everything's built on the back of data now, right? If you buy a custom suit or a custom couch, we can create entire experiences around that purchasing decision, right? Like, let me send you, what your room could look like. Yeah, your couch is going to be in there perfectly configured, but then look at all these accessories that go with it. Start to envision this space, not just with the couch, but with everything. There are some really high-end fashion brands that do, custom shoes down to like the pattern that is on them. They have your initials etched into it. Well, if I know that I have a customer who's been on the site taking a look at those, I can, potentially send them a display ad, or if I have their information in email that customizes the shoe with some of their personal information. Like, it can get a little big brothery at some point, but the bottom line is, you're basically, when you're shopping these curated, customizable experiences, you're giving brands the ability to have a peek at what your taste is and the type of things that, appeal to you. And, the ability to really give them a custom experience whenever they come to your site, whenever you interact with them via email, whenever they come into your store, potentially. So the whole clienteling aspect, again, does it get a little creepy sometimes? Maybe. But as long as you're providing that value add where it's like, oh, like, this brand knows I've shopped there before. They've made me an item that I really love. And now I'm going to get kind of a curated experience every time I interact with them. Like, that's cool, you know?
Yeah, and I think as you think about personalized and configurated products, as my dog is crying, we'll wrap up soon. It's one thing to have, hey, you might also like, or people who looked at this also looked at this core stock item, to, hey, I just bought a custom couch. I just configured it. I built it myself. I bought it. And now we're offering other custom products that we've generated for you that match your couch. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you have a room that, you know, was fully decorated, right? It wasn't just a configured couch. It's the whole experience is 100% yours all of a sudden, because, you know, and the brand took the time, granted it was automated, it was digital, but to create another custom product for me, right? So sort of this leveling up of clienteling, I guess, as you call it.
Right. It's it's a really exciting space. And again, you know, we're able to help enable that type of marketing motion. And hopefully a way that is not that, you know, it's not that much of a lift once you are on a software like ours. Like, we regularly churn out that type of content for current customers. So it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. So we will wrap up today's session of Overdose and Chill with Hilary Murdock from Threekit. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You want to share your contact info, Hilary?
Sure. I'm at hmurdock@threekit.com. I'm also at hrmurdock on Twitter. And check out 3kit.com, particularly our Shop in 3D section, where we've got a bunch of our clients, customers who've gone live with experiences. And it's a way to literally go to one place and shop all these different 3D experiences. It's pretty cool. So check that out.
And that's 3kit all spelled out with the words. So
correct.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, Hilary. Chat soon and take care.
Thanks.